Hello class, these are our Algebra 1 notes for section 7-9. Today we are solving quadratic equations by using factored form. So these are our steps. We first want to transform our equation so that it is equal to 0. We are then going to rewrite the equation in factored form. I'm trying to get my pen working here. There we go. So it's in factored form. Then we're going to apply the zero product property. And then solve each equation, of course. So zero product property allows us to write two equations equal to 0, and then we solve them. So let's go ahead and just go through these steps. So our first step, we want to make this equal to 0. So I would subtract 140 on both sides. It's better if your variable, if your n squared is positive. So then I have n squared minus 4n minus 140 equals 0. So first I have it equal to 0. Then I want to factor. So to factor, I want to think about things that multiply to make 140. So the one that I can see right away is 14 times 10. Because it's a negative 140, one of my numbers needs to be negative and the other one needs to be positive. And so I'm going to make the 14 negative because negative 14 plus 10 would equal the negative 4 for my middle term. So now we'll go ahead and factor. This means I'm going to have n minus 14 times n plus 10 equals 0. So I have it equal to 0. I have my factored form. Now I'm going to go ahead and do zero product property. Either n minus 14 is equal to 0 or n plus 10 is equal to 0. And then we're going to solve these. My first equation I'm going to solve by adding 14 on both sides so that n equals 14. My second equation I'll solve by subtracting 10 on both sides so that n equals negative 10. On the next one, it's already equal to 0, so I don't have to worry about that step, but I do need to go ahead and factor. So let's think about what multiplies to make 100. It could be 4 times 25, it could be 5 times 20, it could be 10 times 10. Obviously 1 times 100 would be there as well, 2 times 50. You don't need to list them all out. We really just need to think about what's happening, and when we get to the right one, stop. So remember, we've got to multiply to make a positive, but add to make a negative. So really both of my numbers need to be negative. Negative times negative would give me a positive 100, but it would add to make a negative instead. So the combination that adds to make negative 20 would be negative 10 and negative 10. So we're going to make this x minus 10 times x minus 10. Let's go ahead and fix that. X minus 10 times x minus 10. So we could go ahead and do zero product property now. And so I could write x minus 10 is equal to 0. Because they're both the same factor, I only need to solve it one time. So no need to solve the same equation twice, and I get x equals 10. The work could look a little bit different on this one. It's possible that I could have written this as the quantity x minus 10 squared equals 0, and then I would have taken a square root on both sides. Square root of 0 is 0. X minus 10, if I have a square and a root, is an absolute value. But because there's no plus or minus 0, I would just write x minus 10 equals 0, and then I would add. So both methods work. What I really like about the method that we did use initially is that you can see I would get the answer of 10 twice, and we call that a multiplicity. And that's going to be important later on. So really there's two solutions. It's just 10 happens 2 times. We get the same solution 2 times. So on the next one, I want to make it equal to 0. I'm going to subtract 6x on both sides. And so I have x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. This is a tricky one. There's only two terms. What I notice is that they both have an x. So I'm going to factor x out of both of them. So if I have x squared and I factor out one factor of x, I'm left with one factor of x. Minus, if I have 6x and I divide by the x or factor that out, I'm just left with 6. You can always go back and remultiply to check your answer. So if I have x times x, that gives me x squared minus x times 6 gives me a 6x. So I know we haven't spent nearly as much time factoring out just a common factor, and you might need a little practice with that. All right, zero product property says either my x is equal to 0 or my x minus 6 is equal to 0. The first one's already solved. The second one I would solve by adding 6 on both sides. And so I have x is 0 or x is 6. On the last one, if I'm following my zero product property directions, I would first subtract 49 on both sides. I know this might not be what you think is the easiest method, so we'll definitely look at a second method as well. This would be x squared minus 49 equals 0. So now I need to recognize that x squared is a perfect square, and so is 49. 49 is equal to 7 squared. So when I have that difference of squares, difference of two perfect squares, remember it's like that middle term is 0. So it's what multiplies to make 49 but adds to make 0, and that's going to be 7 and negative 7. So we'll factor it as x plus 7 times x minus 7 equals 0. My zero product property would be x plus 7 equals 0, x minus 7 equals 0, and then to finish, we'll subtract 7 for one equation and add 7 for the other. So we get x is negative 7 or x is 7. So this is actually probably the longer way to solve this problem. The other way that we could do this is by taking a square root on both sides. So that would give me an absolute value of x. Remember, when I have a square root or root and I have a variable inside, it gives me an absolute value. On the other side, square root of 49 is 7. And so we have x equals 7 or x equals negative 7. So I think it's really interesting to compare the square root work with the factoring work. So I feel like on this problem number 4, this method was way easier. It was a lot less work. Easier just all the way around for showing work and then just what you're doing. But when I looked at problem 2, I really think that just solving one of those factors was probably easier. So it's not really fair to say that one is easier than the other. I think it just depends on the problem. And so really think as you're working through these, what's the most efficient way to solve? What's going to get you there with the least number of steps? So we're not really doing anything new today, but we are putting big ideas together. We've already used zero product property, we've already factored, now we're combining them in order to solve quadratic equations. That's our main idea for the day. As always, if you need help, please make sure you ask.